Well, good morning, YouTube. I'm up early because today, for the very first time, I'm smoking some beef short ribs, which, as you may or may not know, are a staple of barbecue in Texas. And like most things in Texas, these suckers are big. Now, they're not called short out of irony, but because of where they are cut from, a section called the short plate. Running in the Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker today will be some Kingsford Standard charcoal, sand in the water pan, and a few chunks of oak. Now in Central Texas, they use post oak, but I suppose white oak will be just fine. Again, because this will be a long cook, probably between 8 to 9 hours, I'm setting up the WSM using the Sue's donut method. Generally, short ribs are cut into racks of 4 ribs. So what I have here is a half rack of what some might call a dinosaur cut. Now I only bought 2 because they were nearly $12 a pound for USDA Choice. Evidently, the Asian markets in the East Coast have been buying up short ribs like mad, which has driven up the price. I can't even imagine what prime would cost me. First things first, I removed some of the hard fat and silver skin from the surface of the ribs, and if you're wondering about this wire hanging in front of the camera, just try to ignore it. I'm sorry about that. Now in the back of these ribs, there's a pretty thick membrane, and doing some research, meatheads said you should not remove it because if you do, the meat might fall off. I just decided to score it. Now I know in barbecue, everyone has their own opinions on what the best temperatures are for particular meats. Today I'm examining 2 trains of thought on this. Meathead in his book says that for beef ribs, I should shoot for a pit temp around 225. Aaron Franklin, on the other hand, says 285 is the best temperature. So I'm just going to shoot for somewhere in the middle. A little high or a little low at that mark, at least I'll find myself in somebody's corner. For base and binder today, I'm using some of North Carolina's own Texas Pete. Aaron Franklin likes to use it on his ribs, so I figured I'd give it a shot as well. Now, even though traditional style Texas barbecue is 50-50 salt and pepper, I decided to forego that and use some Black Ops Brisket rub from Oakridge barbecue on these ribs. Once the rub was applied, I let the rack continue to set out so it would come to room temperature and so the WSM could settle somewhere between 250 and 260 degrees. Once some time has elapsed and the WSM has settled in, I'm going to go ahead and put this half rack on, center of the grate, come back in a few hours. So here's a look at the ribs after about 5.5 hours on the pit. As you can see, the meat had significantly pulled back from the bones. Now from here on out, I'm going to be spraying the ribs down with water every hour until they are done. This is to keep the bark moist, the edges from burning, and because, well, Aaron recommends it. I'm also going to be probing the ribs for tenderness between the bones and checking the internal temperature every hour. Now Meathead recommends cooking beef ribs until they reach an internal temperature of 203 degrees Fahrenheit. Aaron says that they are done when the probe slides between the ribs like it would into warm butter. So I'll continue to check until I reach both of those goals. Alright, so here we are at 9 hours into the cook, and after I probed these ribs over a handful of hours, I knew at this point exactly what Aaron was talking about. The probe was now sliding through the ribs between the bones like it would slide through warm butter, up and down the ribs. Of course, the temperature here exceeded Meathead's 203 degrees, but I was more concerned with tenderness than I was with temperature. So I'm going to pull the ribs off the smoker, wrap them in foil, and place them in a dry cooler so they can rest for at least an hour. Well, here's the finished product. Let's slice into these ribs and see how they look on the inside. Now, not a predominant smoke ring, but remember these ribs went on at room temperature, so that's going to kind of hinder that smoke ring effect. Now just look at all that juice. Wow. Gotta say these ribs were great. They were smoky, beefy, but I gotta say that Black Ops rub kind of hides a little bit of that beef flavor when you get a bite of that bark. Maybe salt and pepper is the best way to go. I don't know, just my 2 cents. Well, I hope you'll learn something. I know I certainly did. Thanks for watching, y'all.